Today is Monday, November 22nd, 2021. It is 10 a.m. I am Lacey Brooks, representing the City of Savannah's Municipal Archives. I am interviewing Jean Graves for the Proud Savannah History Project. We are conducting this interview in Savannah, Georgia via Zoom. Thank you for joining us today. Let's start by having you tell us your full name and please spell your name.
Okay, it's actually Billy Eugene Graves II. Gene Graves, Genegraves.
And please tell us your pronouns and how you identify.
It's a mystery.
And when and where were you born?
In 1953, I was born at Fort McPherson, Georgia, which is now, I think, Tyler Perry's studios in South Atlanta.
And when did you move to Savannah and why?
I moved to Savannah in 1995, middle of 95. Actually, I moved to Tybee Island. I was forced to retire due to an AIDS diagnosis. I had lost my partner of 13 years. That's in 94, and I retired at the end of 95 and moved down to Tybee Island, where I had relatives on both Tybee and Wilmington Island, favored relatives, and it was one of those deals I wanted to live while I was live. It was before the cocktail. So that's why I moved and when I moved to Tybee Island. Yeah.
So what were your first experiences like in Savannah? What do you remember when you first got here in 1995 about the community?
Well, what surprised me, I guess, I've been in a committed relationship for 13 years, lived in the same home, in a cocoon, I guess, in Atlanta. And what was interesting to me was I felt like I was afraid I was coming out again. When one of the first things I did to try to connect to the community was to go to what they called Boys Night Out. It was a dinner gathering they did back in the day. And my hesitancy, I actually sat at the bar rather than going to the table. I was the whole time, and I couldn't believe that. And so it just kind of reminded me that it's a lifelong process. Coming out, being yourself. But I do remember that. I started going to the First City Network, which was the organization that was started way back when, in large part, I believe, in response to the AIDS crisis of the time. And they were my outlet, and they were wonderful. And my aunt and my uncle, they would go with me, so I had someone to join me, and I came to know some good people. And I got rather ill in '96, but the cocktail came out. I actually was on a clinical trial, but the cocktail came out in '97 and got my health back. And like I said, I was enjoying going to the socials. Also, I was checking out the town and going to the bars, the whole thing. I was a single man, and I felt Savannah to be very, very welcoming, very, very welcoming. Yeah, very welcoming.
So what places specifically can you remember that you visited in Savannah? Was there one specific that you feel like needs to be recorded, or any others that might be gone now that need to be remembered that you visited?
Well, yes. This bar comes to mind. It was a bar I loved. It was a good place to hang out, just hang out and meet people. and of all rank and file. But we get back to First City Network. I after going to the socials and then finally making it to Boys Night Out, and I decided to get involved, and so I started. I think it was in 1997. I ran for the board, and there were. It was a very small board and a big transition time for First City Network. I think I became the secretary right away, and got my first computer through FCN sitting in my house because we didn't have a place. And so back to your question, in 1999, First City Network and the gay teen group that I was highly involved in found a home, and our first meetings were held at behind the Jingle Bell Church on Harris Street, and it was First City Network offices, and where Standout met for a number of years, many years actually. So that was a unique place and a special place, and it was the first time First City Network had a home outside of someone else's, dining room table, and so that was a big transition time, and we had. So I was working with some very committed activist at the time, Kevin Clark and late Henry Frost, his partner. They lived it. And Henry, I think had the same, was coming from the same place I was. He was dealing with HIV, and he retired, and he came to Savannah with full-blown intention. He was going to use his time, in the area that he felt like he could be most effective. And so anyway, First City Network and the Network newspaper, I did the advertising. I worked with Henry in distribution, ran around. At one point in time, hitting all the bars, putting out the Network newspaper, every month. Worked with a great editor, a straight retired gentleman, Mr. Parker, for a long time with the newspaper, and then and to move on. In 2000, late 2000, there was a gay teen group that had been started within FCN by Martha Womack, a clinical psychiatrist, and Jamie Murray, who was the department head at the School of Social Work at Savannah State. They had a monthly group, and that had been going on since the mid-90s, I guess, and they had made some money at one point in time, a couple of thou or so, at some booth, and had given it to the youth group, the FCN, and that became the seed money to actually get that space. It was like 3 months rent, and so we got the contract with the Unitarian Universalist Church, and the youth group had a place to meet. And Orlando Montoya, who was also who had arrived in Atlanta at a similar time and had gotten involved on the board. Well, let me back up. Martha and Jamie, after inviting me to help facilitate a few times, they were ready to turn the thing over. They were very busy professionals, and I was retired. And so Martha, knowing my background in Atlanta, working with many young gay folks, as it was a mecca, and I worked for a number of years for a restaurant company that was also a mecca for gay people once they moved to Atlanta from all over the Southeast. And so, among other reasons, I had a lot of experience with young gay folks, and so we for a year or so we did that, and people's memories. If you're 15, 16, your memory, a month is a lifetime. So it just never got really off the ground. There whenever anybody coming, and so Orlando came had a youth named Joe Florenza, who was another of many co-founders of the youth group there for First City Network. He had gotten in touch with Orlando Montoya, and Orlando had come up with a three-part plan of how the youth group would grow and become more professional with with our folks that on the board that we would be accountable to, that were professionals in the field. And the beginning thing was to go weekly, and so we started a weekly youth group, and that was Orlando. I don't think it was there in person, but it was his plans on the, and we followed. And Joe, who was 16 at the time, lived in Richmond Hill, which was out in the boonies. His father was in Iraq. He came along at the right time, and with his promise that he would be there every week, as a youth there, that there would be someone there, other than just a couple of adult facilitators. We started a weekly group, and it did very, very well, and grew. After a couple of years, I left, and for a short time, Ernie Lee, who was at one time Georgia Teacher of the Year, he briefly took over, and at that point in time, the group became incorporated. From the very beginning, Robert Dunn, Bob Dunn's mother, Mary Ann Bruette, she was there. I had met her. We were both on Tybee, and she actually helped me. I thought I was, not going to live very long, and I quit filing my taxes for a couple of years. And she was she kind of got me out of that, and so we became friends. And she was there 20 years with that youth group, being the treasurer and helping out with our successful grants along the way. And then her. Once the youth group was incorporated in 2005, somewhere along the way, Bob Dunn came along, and he really, a part of the plan was to, have a full-time person, running this youth group. And I was like even an interim director, from the very beginning. I was never meant to be the guy that ran the place, but he came into it and put all his energy and expertise and really grew the group. And I can't say enough about the work he did with the youth here and the people he was able to bring in from SCAD, from Georgia Southern. I can't even begin to mention their names, but there was a core group of people there that made the youth group really alive there for some time. And it still prevails. It goes under a different name now, and it has gotten back under the umbrella, I thought, of the Pride Center now. And I believe it's a weekly youth group, and that there continues to be a need for a youth group.
So at one time you sat on the board for with First City Network. Can you talk about your experience being on the board and what your level of participation with First City Network was like?
Well, I was very active, like I say, in the very beginning. I'm talking about I joined 97, and then I said I was the secretary and ran around doing the newspaper. It was my main attraction. It was what I did. It was my attempt at social life, and it was also an attempt at taking the time I had to do what was important. I felt was important, that I had was blessed to have the opportunity to do, which was spend a lot of time volunteering. Yeah, it was, I was highly involved. There was people that I came to know very well. I can, real often, Kevin Henry, I spoke of, Mark Krieger, who is the ultimate activist, truly the ultimate activist, and in Orlando. I could go on and on. People. Remember our first little brochure that the youth group put out was a art teacher named Julie, and taught in the Chatham County schools. We used the old fashioned, we pasted pictures and rolled it off in the machine. This was, like I said, I got my first computer. It was FCNs, and probably my first cell phone was when we decided to have a live telephone for any youth that was to call. So oftentimes, it's 3:15 in the afternoon. When and so anyway, that was a long time ago. But I left Savannah actually in October of '99, and so basically my first 5 years, I lived 55 miles south, just north of Brunswick, in Darien, Georgia, is where I live now, and have for 22 years. But my first 5 years down here was like 3-4 days a week up in Savannah. It was my world. And there, we still don't have a red light in this county. But the beer got too expensive on Tybee, and so I moved down here, and it's been nice. It's very secluded. It's lonely sometimes in Eulonia. It's the exit, but the youth group followed me down here, and oh gosh, I don't guess it's been 10 years ago, 12 years ago. We had a openly gay student at the McIntosh Academy School here where I am in McIntosh County, and a standout youth came in under the direction of Bob Dunn, and got Lambda Legal involved, and we're prepared to sue the Board of Education down here to get a youth group established within the school. This guy has moved on. He was in the Army in the Navy for 8 years, and now he's transgender, transitioning. So anyway, there are gays in McIntosh County too. so.
Can you talk about your experiences or the experience in Savannah about the AIDS crisis when you came to Savannah? Do you remember what it was like at that time?
When I moved to Tybee in '95, the cocktail had not come out, and so it was still, pretty much, death row, and so that was the state of affairs at that time. After a couple of years, say I moved down here in October of '99. Within the year, I had to go to public health for assistance. My insurance, bill was becoming $1,000 a month, and what have you, and so I got involved in a group that's part of the Ryan White program, and I sat on a board there for several years, and ultimately I burned out on all of them. I guess too involved, too excited, too passionate, I guess. But so there, I was very aware of what was going on, but then now this all came along again in the late '90s, and Savannah lost a lot of people Savannah, very blue blood. It's all under the, it was all very hush hush. The gay community was, at, Midnight in the Garden of Evil is very true. If you hadn't lived in Savannah, you might think it was overdone, but it's not. But it was just quiet, and I think a lot of people moving to town decided not to be so reserved and to speak of things and push and and that that's um, but then the cocktail came along and things changed dramatically. Of course, I'm here after going through 2 clinical trials. I'm a very lucky man, but um, things did change dramatically. There were 6 or 7 bars in Savannah when I moved here. As far as I know, I haven't been to a bar in Savannah in a dozen years, but when I was there, there were a lot of them, and now I think it's just one. Um, um, Another significant time was 2000, the year 2000, when Savannah had their first Pride Festival, and maybe one of their best. It was very well done, and a guy that never gets credit for all that he has done, literally physically done for the gay communities, Bobby Jeffries, who was a co-chair along with a lady named Carol Riles that did that first Pride Festival, and there's been, of course, our presence there over the years, and I'm glad to know that it still goes on, and there's still a need for such. Yeah.
So you were talking about how Savannah was very reserved and quiet, but then there were new people that moved to town that were more active. Do you feel that Savannah has opened up more to the LGBTQ community or not? Do you feel like there has been some progress, or do you feel like there's not been enough progress?
Oh, there's been tons of progress in the last 20 years, and I don't mean to diminish any local native Savannahans that might have been out there, but as overall, it was a very reserved place, and if you didn't die of age, you died of something else, if somebody passed away, and yes, come a long way, and the First City Network was a vital part of that change. That it was the vehicle, I think, for so much of that change. Georgia Equality, which Kevin Clark was very involved with, and a number of other ones. Bobby Jeffries one comes to mind. Again, there's so many people that got involved in the politics, because First City Network non-political of the town, and there were city proclamations that non-discriminatory proclamations that were pushed through that might not might not have made it had it not been for people that weren't born here, that decided to make it home. But no, Savannah is, I've found to be very gay friendly, and things have changed so dramatically. 12 years ago, you couldn't get married, and now everybody I know is married, and been together 40 years, and all that, and so it's been dramatic change. But as far as the city goes, I think it's as open as any large urban area for a city of its size. It's got the culture, it's got the tourists, it's got the transitional people, just due to the water. it's a wonderful place, and I think the gay community is a very vital part of it, and has been for a long time. Uh, so, yeah, I think it's great. It's unbelievable to me, especially young people. They just it just doesn't matter anymore. Someone's, in large part. But I mean, Savannah, there are parts of town, like in every urban area, there's places where, there's acceptance of diversity, and then there's places where there's not. Uh, um, just like all the other minority, uh, lack of acceptance. So,
So having worked with youth for such a long time, what would you tell young people today or those coming along in the future that you would want them to know about?
Well, one thing, if I meet a youth, and they're coming out. I didn't come out till I was 25, and my whole sexual emotional growth, it's stunted, and that's why I went to work with young people when I had the opportunity to work with, do what I wanted to do, and I was out of high school. As far as I know, I had never met, laid eyes on a homosexual. I like I said, I went through college, graduated from University of Georgia, and before I came out, and so I was serious denial, and repression, and blah blah. So there are some youth that just have to come out. And there's some that ponder it, how to go about it, and they'd be like me and float through forever, without just not dealing with it, your sexuality. But so back to your question, one thing I would say to any youth that I met was you've got to be yourself. You've got to know yourself. It's a lifelong process. We're all coming out, in our own way. It's blossoming as people over time. But when you come out publicly, you got to remember you're dragging your parents along with them. You're actually forcing them out. They don't have that choice that you made to come out publicly, or to be who you are. But just keep in mind that it can be just as difficult, if not more so, for the parents of the siblings of a gay person, and they need to be very sensitive of that. Very sensitive to that, because you're bringing you're adding a lot of people with you. So I think that's good advice, if there's any good advice, but to just be sensitive of that, but certainly don't repress yourself. Don't repress yourself, but just appreciate the consequences of what you're up to. The lower you, I don't get philosophical but that would be what I would have to say to a youth. Get on with it and be who you are as quickly as you can, and carry on. Like all of us.
You said that you had been in a committed relationship before, and you had lost your partner before you came to Tybee Island, the Savannah area. Are you currently in a committed relationship?
No, and I've remained single since. We were committed. We lived in the same home, and for 13 years. He was a school teacher, and I ran restaurants, and it was a great time. And I had to retire at 41, 42 or whatever. And that's briefly after that, after losing Michael, I moved, is when I moved. No, I was in a long-term a long-distance relationship with someone who lived in San Diego, California for about 7 years, and that was fun. And we traveled together, and I was spending my late partner's inheritance. But while I could live live while I was living, and then that's been about it. Someone like me carry a lot of baggage, when you're walking around with AIDS, uh, and you're not, you have no money and you're not going to make any money. I'm very content being a single person, but no, I haven't had I've not been in a committed relationship since.
What does the Proud Savannah History Project mean to you when you heard about the project? What did you think about it?
Well, I didn't know anything about it, so I have looked and seen that it is a project whose intent or purpose is to bring to light the diversity of Savannah, whether it be the neighborhood or the Pride Park, history of the politics. I think it's a great project. It's a great project because history is a fluid thing, and everybody has their own perspectives and all that stuff. So I think bringing these folks together in the way they see the history of Savannah, how it has transpired in our lifetimes, is a great project. Happy to be a part of it. Thank you.
Is there anything else you'd like to share with us about your experiences in the LGBTQ plus community and its history in Savannah? Anything I have not touched on or that you feel is important to record?
I wish a lot of younger gay people had the opportunity to be exposed to gay couples who have been together for 40 years, they're 60 somethings. My best friends, couples have been together 45 years, 25 years, to show, because there really isn't, once again, things have changed so dramatically in the last 20 years. I can't say enough about the progress, but not to say that there's not a long way to go. Just like racism comes to mind, but yeah, I'm happy to see that there are couples out in public, that are middle-aged men, and I'm glad to see that. I'm glad to see that. That's good for everybody, especially the youth. But thank you, Lou.
Thank you for sharing your history with us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Lacey. I enjoyed it.